All right, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to this this Thales global webinar called Navigating the Subscription Maze. I think most of us are familiar with the concept of a subscription today. Most of us are even familiar with the concept of subscriptions in software as a software application. I think if we were going to categorize our own perspective of this, we would say that the industry was kind of divided into three. Those that have already made that leap, already active and running in that sort of subscription way of doing things. Those which are actively and sort of at a more advanced stage of thinking about it, and then there's those which are which are basically, they know it's something that needs to be done, right? But it's something that can happen later. It's not a high priority. The reason why we're talking to you guys today is because if you look at all the events, we're all getting a little bit tired of hearing about the crazy year that we've just had, right? But I think we're one of the real shifts that we saw from last year was a dramatic change in the sense of urgency around this. People's buying habits have changed, people's selling habits have changed. The way we want to consume our stuff is changing, the way we work is changing, right? And this has definitely created an increased sense of urgency on the offering software, offering applications, offering products on a per subscription basis. We've definitely seen an increase in the level of interest there. So this is a really apt session. You're going to hear from two experts on this topic today. Our guest speaker, Mark Thomason, is a research director at IDC, and our very own head of solution sales and BD is David DiMillo. So you're going to hear from both Mark and Dave today. They're going to guide you through industry trends, some real life customer examples. The aim to give you the knowledge and the tools that you're going to need to get on the right path, right? To either complete that journey if you're on it already, or to start that journey if you're maybe not even thinking about it yet.
Yeah.
Before I hand
over, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries.
I was going to do a little bit of housekeeping, but you go ahead.
Yeah, no, please. You.
Okay. Yeah, just before I hand over to you, David, a little bit of housekeeping stuff that I need to let you guys know about. So this is a listen-only webinar. You're all going to be muted, but you are more than welcome to raise any questions that you'd like to ask during the session. You can just use the little questions pane on your right-hand side in the GoToWebinar window there. We will have some time at the end of the session to go over those questions, so please, feel free to ask away. We're also going to invite you to respond to a few live polls. So we've got a bit of interaction going on here during the session as well. So you'll see a number of polls that come up, and we encourage you to respond to the information in those polls. So with that, Dave, I'm going to pass the microphone over to you to introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. My name is Dave DiMillo. I'm the VP of our Global Solution team located in the lovely Boston area. I say lovely in quotation fingers because our weather stinks, but everybody knows that. And so I've been here for 11 or so years, and one of the things that my team does is help our customers really understand the impact. What is the business value? What's the financial impact of changing their business models and implementing a solution that actually solves some of those software entitlement and licensing challenges. So we can talk about that later. And the way this is going to work today, we have Mark Thomason, as Darren says. So Mark really needs no introduction because he's awesome. So I'm going to turn the call over to him in a second. But Mark, of course, with IDC is going to be talking about market trends and what IDC is seeing across the tech market globally. And then I'm going to be working with him interactively throughout the presentation to actually show you how the things that Mark is talking about actually come to fruition and give some customer examples of many of the things that Mark will be speaking of. So I'm going to turn the call over to Mark right now, and let's go.
Hey, and I'm Mark Thomason. I'm the Research Director for Digital Business Models and Monetization, which is a big, long title. And so what I do is I look at the technologies and best practices that you need to monetize the digital economy. And so I focus my time on subscription management, usage intelligence, entitlement, and price optimization and management type applications. But I'll show you more of that later. And as you guys know, the monetization functions are the heart of any business model. And each year it gets easier to automate these complex business models, like subscription and consumption, while continuously understanding customer value. But the first thing we want to do is we want to throw you a question. We want to understand and who we're talking to on the other side of this call. And if you could answer poll 1 and just find out where you are in this journey before we all start. So you got 30 seconds here. Need some Jeopardy music for the countdown.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
If it goes to webinar upgrade there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Piped music in the background.
Yeah, I can see the results are still coming in, and once you close the poll, I think they'll show you the slides again.
Yeah, I'll give it another. It's still moving around quite a lot. I'll give it another 10 seconds. Alrighty, let's close that poll.
All right, so what we have, the winner is, most of you guys are in a hybrid situation with on-premises and SaaS applications. And then there's a nice 30-30 split between we just offer on-premise products, and then we have some that are in the middle, that are in the truly hybrid area of having their on-premise products with cloud-enabled features, which is great. So there's something for everybody in this discussion today.
Exactly. Yep. Good stuff.
All right. So next slide, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. So so just to level set and give you everybody a perspective of what I work on and what I look at is I'm looking at the macro trends that are happening out there. So I talk to a variety of customers. I'm a horizontal analyst, so I talk to manufacturing customers and I talk to software customers and all different types, and get involved in these really, interesting. That's the one great thing about this position is I get brought in and you get to understand what people are selling and how, what's the value of that? Because I'm really all about understanding value. That's where pricing comes in. And so last year we did a bunch of polls during the year and we found out that subscription model companies were weathering the COVID-19 pretty damn well. And it really, COVID-19 really focused a lot of companies to focus on selling remotely and operating remotely. And that was a really big shock to everybody, which is probably well known by now. But I'm looking at those types of companies and working with them that they're hardware companies and they want to offer things as a subscription. Seeing multi-partner solution marketplaces start to come up. A lot of innovation around IoT and 5G and, business model innovation. And what that does is inform me on the monetization side. It's like, so how all these trends, how are they going to be realized within a company? How can you do all this stuff? And the most important thing is as we go digital, well, a lot of companies have, how do you make good use of the data that you have about your customers, about your engagement, about your usage of your product? How do you pull all this stuff together so you can make better decisions faster? So you can satisfy your customers at scale. So I'm just going to go past this because I want to talk more. Next slide, please. Love my Peter Drucker guy. So we do at IDC, we do international surveys like every 2 weeks last year, just trying to get the pulse of what was going on with companies as they go through the year of the pandemic. So we asked them a bunch of questions over and over again, and one of the questions that I pulled out that we got in November wait, not yet. Don't do the reveal. No, thanks. Is we would ask them, you know, what are you going to focus on to ensure your future business growth and resilience? And the top 3 answers that we got were, we're going to focus on changing and adapting our existing business model to digital business. So we're going to focus on the business model, and then we're going to focus on how we serve those customers and how we do that with these new digital services. And then finally, we're going to digitize our operations. So the whole company, I mean, there's your offerings, your model, and your business model right there. And one thing that they didn't say, now you can click, is on the bottom, only 6% said, hey, we're doing everything great today. We're not going to change. Everything's fine. So kind of like the lesson from this is, there's still a lot of people focused on change. So if you're not on the leading edge, you're not behind. You're you know, along with the rest of the group. It's things were disruptive, and we're all moving forward. Next slide. So one of the great assets that IDC has is our multi-decade market model. So every quarter we ask the companies that we track how much money they made in what product, and how, you know, what is that product? Is that a SaaS product? Is it an on-prem product? Is it a hosted product? That type of thing. So we're doing this over 900. We got 900 in the tracker database, and then we probably have another 1,000 that we track that we have good data but not awesome data. So so we have a really big picture, and then that kind of goes out to the long tail of 3,000 for a, you know, even a bigger picture. But so what you're seeing in this view is we've taken the data and we've separated it by on-premise and public cloud services. And public cloud services are multi-tenant offerings. So it's a multi-tenant SaaS or PaaS or some kind of multi-tenant offering that the company offers. And the on-premise and others, that includes like the hosted cloud stuff, or you know something that's not multi-tenant. And you can see, you know, obviously this is a forecast, and you can see the change over time. So by 2024, we're predicting that by 2024, 51% of the total revenues, total software revenue across these companies will be from multi-tenant cloud products. So, you know, we've been talking about cloud for years and moving to cloud, but still we're just, you know, we're still almost on to the 51% of all cloud revenue. And if we look at those vendors, 47% of them are like I think, what is it, 40% that we started out at the beginning of the call, where 40%, was the number 40% in the poll?
Yes.
Yeah, 40%, I'm seeing it now. So we see 47% of the vendors, which is kind of close, that offer both. So they're in that hybrid situation where they're offering two different deployment models. And the companies that are just offering on-premise only are shrinking at a pretty slow -2.4. So this is happening along the way. And so next slide. And so in this view, I'm taking that same data and then I'm going a level down. So within IDC, we have what you were seeing is like all software revenue. And then we break it out by primary market, which is 3 markets like applications, system infrastructure, and development tools. And then we break that out by secondary markets, and there's 19 of them. And you're seeing 18 of them here in this area. And what I'm showing you is in forecasted data by the end of this year, only 3 of those secondary markets, which includes a bunch of functional markets underneath it, will be that are over the 50% mark. So you've got like 3 markets that are really focused on moving to cloud, and the move to cloud a lot of times is usually predicated on how much collaboration and these advanced analytics will drive new features and drive interest into their platforms. So the types of collaborative applications, bingo, that really requires cloud, so you can offer your product to anybody around the world at any time. So that's a big driver for moving to cloud. But after that, it's like, ooh, we can do all these cool machine learning things, but we want to be able to have those models here at our in our own cloud and manage and monitor those closely. And so that is actually another good driver moving a lot of companies forward, in addition to the collaboration. So next slide. Oh, but I did want to highlight. Let me go back one. It was in the title, and I missed that. So what I really wanted to take away of this is that the hybrid model will endure for years, and in some markets forever. Because one of the markets that you don't see on here is network software, because it's 100% on-premise, and it may never go to cloud. It's they might have manager of managers type of things, but things that have to go on servers are not going to be SaaS. They're not going to be multi-tenant SaaS. So we understand that, and we're tracking that. So now you can go to the next.
I was going to say, Mark, we did what we call a virtual roundtable with a few of our customers and prospects last month, and really the question was around the shift to hybrid and if they were getting away from on-prem products. And every customer on the call gave an opinion that aligned with what you're saying here, where some of those components will go to hybrid, will go to the cloud-based versions, but they cannot be fully cloud-based just because of the way their applications work within the customer environments.
Yeah, you've got some applications that have to be behind firewalls and they can't touch the internet. So yeah, there's a bunch of different use cases out there that require an on-premise product, and that's not going to change for a while. So here again, we're going to take that same data set and we're going to look at it yet a different way. So this is a forecast that I do, and so I take the software revenue that we're getting, and then I look at it from different buckets. So when we go and ask our vendors how much money they're making in different ways, one of the ways is, is this a cloud product? Is it offered as a subscription, or is it a transactional? And then so I take that data, and then I also do a whole bunch of extra work to look at 10Ks and stuff like that to validate our own models, because some of those companies are changing quickly. And I come out with this forecast, and this forecast is looking at the software forecast and in a different light. So you can see, if you click once, there you go, we can come out with the growth rates that are looking forward from 2019 to 2024, and we see that the growth rate for license is shrinking at 6.6%, maintenance is shrinking at 3.8%, and subscription is growing at 14.4%. And this subscription, so the last couple slides you saw were all about the revenue from, is it multi-tenant SaaS or is it not? And so in this view, I'm going, okay, so that's multi-tenant SaaS. I'm taking all that revenue that is sold as a subscription, but I'm also adding in a whole bunch of products that you know and love or heard about that are sold as a subscription, which are they're on-premise products sold as a subscription, like your Adobe Creative Cloud and your Office 365 and your Tableaus and your PTCs, and there's a bunch of applications that have moved over and selling their application as a subscription. And so when this is all done, you can click one more time.
Sure.
By the end of this year, we're going to go over the 51% mark of all software revenue that is sold as a subscription. So that's the three, we've got different trends in here that we just covered, from the deployment model point of view, and now we're covering it from a business model point of view.
Yeah, and just that's a stupid question, just for the point of clarity. When you say license, you're talking about perpetual licenses that do not expire.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and more really, you're kind of focusing on the transactional nature. I'm going to sell you a license and maintenance if I can get you to it, and hopefully you stay on maintenance, and then I might see you later when you upgrade, or or if you kept your maintenance on, maybe you get the upgrade. But those types of things. I'm really looking for those types of trends.
Sure.
Next slide. So what does this mean? So the hybrid model, and I'm kind of, the hybrid, hybrid model, or the hybrid name gets kind of, it's a double entendre here. So there's a hybrid, and from the standpoint of, hey, there's companies that are moving from an on-premise license model to a subscription. So, there's people in both camps. And then there's the deployment aspect of it. There's some that are offering on-premise software versus, a SaaS-based or some kind of multi-tenant cloud software. And then you've got this hybrid thing that I want to introduce a little bit later of the idea of having an on-premise product that has SaaS features in it, so cloud-enabled features in it. Again, like your Office 365 that has like designer, when you're working in PowerPoint, it says, hey, you want these design ideas in your presentation or your slide, or do you want these new widgets or graphics that we can drop in? Those types of features are all cloud enabled. And so we're seeing a lot more companies, like the slide has on here, we're seeing a lot more companies move to this subscription business model for their on-premise. And it moves their revenue base to recurring. That was a really big deal last year because we saw a lot of companies that in the April timeframe, if they were purely transactional and they were more D2C or B2C and they were month to month, they saw a collapse in their revenues. And so the companies that were on a contract-based subscription, they were okay. They had to do some concessions, but those concessions didn't mean losing a customer. That meant like, adding months to their subscription or doing something extra for them, but they kept their customer. And that's really the important part is making sure you keep that connection. Next slide. I think that's yours now.
Yeah, no worries. So thank you for that piece of the presentation, Mark. We're going to get back to some of the industry trends with Mark in just a bit. But I wanted to introduce what we do and how that fits in with what Mark's talking about. So the first thing I want to say is our observations across our customer base, across our markets, we fully buy into everything that Mark is saying here. In that, COVID has quickened the innovation to recurring revenue model. Absolutely, we see that every day within our customers. And really, it's really around digital transformation and helping companies capitalize on the value of software, right? And we're seeing tons and tons of hardware companies that are trying to embrace the digital selling field very quickly and moving to not just software, but subscription software in particular. And of course, as we've been talking along here, hybrid has been certainly a trend upwards. So what I want to do is just cover real quick where we sort of fit into this and how some companies embrace us, right? So when we engage with our customers, instead of just diving into the product, we really try to understand not only what is the underlying problem or pain that our customers are trying to solve, what's the underlying business problem, right? Why do they have the pain to start with? And 3/4 of our customers come to us primarily because they're trying to generate more revenue. That's the underlying problem, right, that they're trying to solve. And certainly we do have customers that come to us to improve efficiency and minimize cost, and customer sat, fits back into revenue opportunities, et cetera. But it's really around helping businesses drive more revenue, trying to capture more revenue around their subscriptions, and keep your customers so their renewals are no-brainers. Okay, so here's where we end up coming into play with our new business is lots of times we'll get calls from companies that say, hey, we know we can sell software and we've been planning on it, but how will things actually work? And when you're a B2B business, you might want a model that is a little more complex or a model that fits your business better than just straight software that expires on a certain date. But our customers come to us with these types of questions where they say, oh, crap, how do things actually work? What's actually going to happen to the software that's running on-prem at the end of the term? Does it just stop working? What does that experience look like? How does the software know when my end customer renews a subscription, right? And then we've been talking about hybrid offerings, and this one's key. Right? How can we control hybrid offerings? So that's an offering where you have an on-prem component and a cloud component, whether it's SaaS or a managed service, but a lot of our customers sell these as a single offering, right? So you don't want to give your customer an experience where they feel like they bought two completely different things. You want kind of a unified customer experience, and you want to be able to report on it from a single entitlement perspective. And of course, you know, how can we be efficient at this stuff so it scales over time? Okay, so these are the things that often requires our customers to pick up the phones and help them work through things. And really, the things that that we offer kind of fit into these buckets here, where we help you and we help our customers, you know, make sure that you're offering the right software model, right? Maybe, and what I mean by that is we want to make sure that you're selling software the way your customers want to buy it, not the way you want to sell it, the way your customers want to buy it. And we'll talk about more of these models coming up because I think some of this stuff is pretty interesting. And of course, the underlying problem, again, the business problem that we're trying to capture or trying to address is helping you maximize revenue, okay, and essentially get paid for your customers using the software by not only just helping them comply, but understanding when they're using it, allowing them to go over and so forth, but have it done in a controlled environment where you can optimize your software revenue. Seriously, if it wasn't for this item here, we probably wouldn't be in business, because this is, again, 3/4 of why businesses are talking to us to start with. And of course, you need good customer self-service. That, you know, that makes sense. And then we deal with a lot of companies where they have a lot of legacy types of license enforcement that could be homegrown, it could be another you know, commercial vendor and so forth. And you know, things are kind of, I'll use the word a mess in the back office. And they're just really trying to clean it up and go to market with something that's cleaner, more efficient to manage, easier for the customers and so forth. Okay, but it's really these two things, right? So are you selling software the right way, and are you getting paid for it? Okay. Now, one of the things I want to mention here is to kind of paint this picture is where what we call software licensing fits in the global supply chain. So this was actually a slide that we got from one of our customers, and I simplified it here. But you know, many of our companies, they look at software entitlement management, right, and software provisioning and software licensing as a key part of the supply chain, right, from pricing and packaging all the way through delivery and so forth. That's an important part of what they do, and they take it seriously, and they look at, you know, having systems that work within their infrastructure and work well. Okay, to the point where this is actually a slide that came from one of our customers. So again, you know, you're implementing your software solutions through ERP, CPQ, order management, and so forth, and how you're entitling your customers, how you're provisioning, how you're delivering the software within that realm is critically important. Okay, and so this is a multi-billion-dollar company, by the way, and they're standardized on Salesforce, Oracle, and Thales. Okay, so again, we're a key part of making sure that the customer can get access to the software very quickly, that they understand what the customer bought, and the customer understands what they bought, and they can only access what they purchased, etc. Okay, so we fit cleanly into your supply chain. And that kind of brings up question number 2 that Darren's going to walk us through now.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So we want to poll you about how you sell your on-premises software today, right? I think, and there's 5 questions here. So let me just give you a little bit of background on each one of them. The first one, the traditional license plus maintenance, you could also call this a perpetual license, right? Plus a maintenance or a support offering. Do you offer it with a subscription today, but you have no control over the expiration? In other words, if a customer decides not to renew, is there anything that ultimately you can do about it? Remember, we're talking about on-premise software, right? Stuff that will be installed with the customer. The third option is the same, but do you have the ability to turn it off, right? Can you block access to that product if that subscription is not renewed or updated? The fourth option is, do you offer a subscription, but then do you also offer feature upgrades from within the app? So it's essentially a hybrid of a conventional subscription and the sort of the more upgrade perpetual model that is also common. And then the last one is, do you offer your products on a subscription today with additional consumption-based metrics, right? So usage-based, pay-per-use, that type of metric, is that also incorporated as part of the subscription? Okay, we have a clear winner so far. I'll just give it another second, and then I shall share the results. But it's actually it's great because it's exactly what we I think what we expected to see. Okay, I will close the poll and share. And this is what we have. So the clear winner is traditional, right? And I think, we as a vendor, as a provider in this market, it's easy for us to assume that the industry is further along than we think, and it really isn't, right? I think this is absolutely a great response, right? 60%. Is still using traditional offerings, and then exactly. Yeah, it's great. Anything to add, Dave or Mark?
No, I was going to say, we work with all these different types of models, and I'll be diving into some of the different types of subscription models coming up. But this makes perfect sense to us, right? And as I mentioned before, one of the things that we're really seeing in the market is companies that are going through this digital transformation saying, hey, we need to be more modern. We need to sell the way our customers want to buy. And a lot of customers want to buy subscriptions simply because it's less risky for them to do that. And obviously there's an accounting benefit for it as well. Okay, so let's keep going here. Mark.
Great.
Sure. This good stuff, good information, and it does mesh well. So now that, so as David brought you through the supply chain view, I'm going to take you through the monetization point of view, because, that's my thing. So I wanted to take you through if you look on the left side, we've got your end customer, and they'll do business with you through a partner, direct, or omni-channel. And everything to the right that we're going to start looking at is within, a software vendor's or a company's abilities. So it all starts with the offer. So you have some kind of application or something that bottles it all up, whether or not you're doing old school person-led, you've got your data sheets and stuff like that, you've got offer management, and then you've got where your pricing goes. There's not a lot of software companies that have price optimization yet. That's something that's coming down the pike. But we do have a bunch that have CPQ and price guidance. And then they'll go through other types of opportunity capture type applications. And customer portals is one of the things that Thales can provide you as far as giving your customer a way of managing what they have. And then it comes to the order. So we're going to do, the customer's going to do an order. It's going to go through and enter a system. We're going to have a contract usually with that, and then move into click. All right, we're going to charge them. We're going to pay. We're going to gather payment, and then we're going to provision the application, and we're going to populate that into our entitlement policies database. And then once they're alive and you're using it, and you've got this kind of software in it, you can start using, basically monitoring their usage and understanding, their feature usage or the API, or if you're selling data, different types of mediation that you can do. And then that would go into revenue recognition if you're doing something over time. And then I've got a dotted line across that group on the top. And those are typical subscription billing functions, you know, so your Zuora, your billing platform, your Arias of the world, they handle those types of functions in the top. And then it gets down to tax, and then commission's a big deal. So I put commission in there because once you move, and we'll talk about this later, if you transition to a subscription business model, sales incentives and partner incentives are a really big deal. But in this case, we're just talking about the company, and being able to manage commissions is a change. And then if you're selling through a partner and you're doing a rev share, or you have some sort of an incentive, then you have to manage that too, and then pay your partners, and manage if you're doing rebates, or there's lots of different things that you can do in this area to engage your partners. But that's all part of monetization too. And then wrapping all of this up is your comprehensive business analytics. So this is, the comprehensive business analytics is usually in the realm of your big suite companies, your Oracles, your SAPs of the world that have this global view of your company. But there's a lot of attention being shown around here by your subscription management companies that are trying to get on top of what's going on in a business, so they can understand it, because a lot of business is moving to subscriptions. And to give you an idea of what it looks like, if you're, just to see how these things work, your provisioning is going to be managed in the offer, in the order. So once you buy something, you are entitled to that. That goes into your database, and then your provisioning application starts its job of giving you your login, or giving you your license key, and so that's that part of it. And then once the product's starting to get used, your usage intelligence basically goes into a database, aggregated by customer, and then thrown up to your subscription management product to be rated, so you can do RevRec on it. So just to give you an idea of how these things work together. Next, please. So consumption is, what the data you're seeing here is from a survey that we do across 15 different SaaS applications. So these are all, in this case, it's subscription management. So this assumes that somebody already is on the subscription, is selling via subscription. And we're asking that group of people, what's your plans on consumption? Because these products and this business model allows an easier transition into lots of different pricing models, including consumption. And we ask them, what do they need? What are their issues? And the top thing is, we need more flexible systems to track and analyze product usage to find value metrics. And a value metric is really around, you're trying to discover in an automated way in this kind of case, because there's direct ways of understanding value, and trying to understand how much they're using their application, how much they're using certain features, how do they use your product as far as like a workflow. And understanding all this stuff is a product manager's dream, to understand how their customer's doing it. And the second bar down there is the companies basically were saying, or respondents were saying, we plan to offer consumption pricing in the next 2 years. And that's the correct answer, because unless you have tracked and understood product usage over a year, so you can understand seasonality maybe with your customers, you shouldn't partake in a consumption model unless you're really sure of what they're using and how much they're using it. Because there's a lot of really bad examples of consumption pricing gone wrong when people get really high bills, and we've had that maybe in the past, where we go overseas with our phone and we come back with a $600 phone cell phone bill because we didn't turn on international roaming with a plan, and we were all getting charged per minute and we didn't have a clue. And so that's not what the customer wants. So now they're telling you when you land, it's like, hey, you're in this other country, and if you do this, you will be charged that. So that's good customer service, which you guys, we can all do together, because we can have in-app messaging, and we can have these different business models that we can understand their usage. So let's move on. So let's talk about a roadmap. So a lot of you guys are on, 60% of you are on license maintenance transactional. And so for a bunch of you, your first step would be to move from a license maintenance to a subscription business model. And the good thing is you're not going to be the first company that does this. So all the challenges those companies had to do 10 years ago was saying, yeah, this is a great model for us, trust us, it's recurring revenue, it's going to be awesome. There's a lot of data to support that, and you don't have to fight that battle. You basically have to basically prove your model and understand how that's going to affect your revenue going forward. And I've got a couple slides at the end that we'll discuss that more. And then once you get that done, then now you can start, since you're going to be onboarding, usually subscription management software to manage this. Now you have this ability to start making other offers, and you can start what I call SaaSifying your on-premise product by starting to add cloud-based features. And for the company, they can start understanding your usage better because now you've got more of a connection into the product. Gives you expansion opportunities because you can start offering these cloud-based features into the product, and you can test these to see maybe if they're good or not. So when you make the next leap to a SaaS-based application, then you have good data. You understand your customer's behavior and what they value. And your customer, they're going to actually, you have the ability to understand and sense if you've used one of those consumer-based applications. I'm using a product for photo editing, and if I don't use a feature that they've told me that they just have, they'll pop up a message, in the top and basically give me a notification to say, hey, here's some training. Here's what you can use to understand this new feature that we just had. And because they know that I haven't used it yet, and they're trying to engage me. They're trying to push me along so I get value out of it, because that's really the point of it. You want people to use all of your product if they can, and you want to understand which features you can drop off when they're not engaged. So when you get to the right side, you've got to, you might want to add a SaaS application if that makes sense for your type of company, and you can start attritioning your older ones because you don't want to manage two different deployment models if you don't have to. And your customer will benefit because now they get a product that they don't have to work with upgrades, and they get API integration, so they can knit it up with products that are left and right of it, sort of like Thales is when their supply chain, being able to integrate that with Salesforce or other applications downstream, so you can automate all this mechanics of getting a product out, sensing what the customer wants.
Yep, totally agreed on all this, Mark. I mean, Thales, our business unit, went through these exact steps and hurdles to get where we are now. Sure. Yeah,
and it's not quick. It's not, this is a multi-year adventure, and you're going to learn so much, through this. But I'll come back and talk about that on the closing. But off to you, David.
Great. So what I want to do is take the notion of going to subscription and look at this through the eyes of our customer base, right? And talk about the different types of subscription models, not only that are popular, but that we're seeing across our customers, right? So the first one obviously is the simple term subscription. So that's where you sell a piece of software for a specific time period. It could be a SaaS offering, it could be on-prem, et cetera. And we have ways of helping you through the expiration of the software if it's running on-premise and so forth. But a lot of our customers, especially in the B2B space, they look at this and they say, okay, this is fine, but it doesn't quite fit our business. And are there ways that we can give our customers either more access to software, or can we count differently and so forth, rather than just counting, seat sales, if you will? So the first one is hybrid offerings. So we're seeing a ton of these, as we mentioned before, and I thought it would be important to describe what I'm talking about. So again, that's a piece of software that has an on-premise and a cloud component. It could be the same offering. They could be bundle of complementary products and so forth. But we're seeing a lot of these in the market where, again, businesses are taking either their whole product or a piece of their product and offering services that are run as SaaS and cloud applications, but they're sold as the same product. We have customers that are looking at what we call named user subscriptions. So this is where you can allow a single user on site, on premise, to access multiple products, or access a product from multiple devices, right? So think about how you run Google, right? I can log in from my iPad, my desktop, my phone, and it knows it's me, right? Because it's assigned to me and not my piece of hardware. The next one that we'll talk about is token subscription. And this one's pretty interesting. And this is where you don't actually sell product licenses, you sell credits, right? Or tokens that can be applied to allow customers to access multiple products. That one could be a little weird if you're not familiar with it, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. I wanted to touch on capacity subscriptions, and what we mean by capacity subscriptions, and by the way, we're seeing a lot of these, is where it's a countdown. So the customer purchases a quantity of goods, of software, and then it gets consumed over time by the user, and then they buy more, right? The inverse of this, and this is what Mark was talking about around consumption, is pay-per-use, and that's understanding what your end customer is doing on premise in terms of usage. All right, so we have tools that allow you to collect that usage, send it back to us, and we can send that over to a billing provider. But if you think about this in terms of the slide that Mark showed, right, the number one thing that his customers wanted was to understand the usage, so they can come up with a model where they can try to charge for it. And we're totally seeing this as well. So most of our customers really want to understand their usage, not quite in a position to actually go to market with pay-per-use. You know, we can certainly do that as well. But I think it's understanding what your customers are doing, understanding when they're using and what features within your product they're actually using, so that you can, you can better price and you can have offerings that make sense. Okay, so these three green things here, I highlighted them because I have customer examples of each. So I'll run through the next three charts really quickly, but again, they are situations where a B2B company needed more flexibility, and they needed more what we consider to be an advanced model, and do it in a controlled way. So the first example is from a company out on the west coast of the US. Don't worry so much about the architecture. It's only there to distract you, seriously. But so they're a large company, $5 billion, and they're in the gaming business, or the graphics for a gaming business. But they came to us because they needed to scale for the future. They needed a way to manage hybrid offerings, so they knew they wanted to go subscription, they knew they wanted to go hybrid. They also had multiple, what we call license enforcement technology, so they had a homegrown license key generator, and they also used one of our competitors, so they wanted to move away from them, move away from their homegrown, standardize on one set of technologies. And so they put us in as the underpinning, and of course we're all integrated and so forth. But the results, and that's the only important thing here, is they have a clean way of offering a hybrid offering, right? So it's got on-prem and cloud, and a single way of understanding the entitlement across both of those pieces. So when we engage with larger customers, again, lots of times, especially with hybrid, the way you track who's entitled to what, they could be in separate systems and so forth, and we tend to pull all that stuff together. We have a feature we call dynamic entitlements, which is actually pretty cool. You should ask us about it sometime. But that, again, that allows them to manage things in a central place and get a single source of truth around entitlement data. And of course, we handle the multiple technologies and so forth. So, you know, they've got, they go to Market Cleaner, their customers can have a clean experience, and they have a lot of reduced friction in their model, right? So that's around hybrid. Okay, the next, real quick, is around named user. So we have a customer in the New England area that is funny. The first time I walked into their business, I felt like I was in the mid-70s, right? So they considered themselves to be old school, and they were going through this digital transformation. It's actually a great story where they're upgrading systems and they're doing things from the top down, absolutely the right way. But their goal was to be more modern. They wanted an Apple-like experience where their users can run their application on their phone, on their iPad, etc., and on their PC as a single person, right? So we manage all that stuff under the covers for them, and it allows them, again, to go to market with that type of offering, and it gives their users, right, flexibility so they can get the most potential out of their software, right? And that's the name of the game here, right? And then lastly, there's Extreme Networks. They're a great customer out in California. They're almost $1 billion company in the networking space. And they wanted to go to market by not exactly selling products, but to sell access to the product. So they sell these things called tokens. So look at them as credits. And the way this works is the customer buys a set of tokens instead of buying a product. And the product is designed to consume a different token value when you're using it, so that the end user can choose the product they want to run. They don't actually have to buy, quote unquote, that product. It gives them super amount of flexibility, and those tokens are purchased on a subscription basis. So the results is that their salespeople can simply sell credits, which makes this easier. It's a clean and easy selling experience and clean and easy buying experience, and super flexible on the usage side as well. So this is actually a really cool model, and we can give you more information on this if and when you need to. So we're going to skip the last polling question because we're running out of time here, and so Mark has 2 slides, and then we'll wrap up. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say on the credits thing, that's what a lot of the large companies are doing with a lot of different product types. So your SAPs, your Oracles, your suites of the world. They want to capture value, and they want to offer incentives to try other products. So they'll create credits for a customer. Hey, why don't you try this? You've got enough credits, you can try it for X number of months or whatever. And so they're just trying to get more engagement on other types of products too. So that's a good expansion plan. So lessons learned quickly. Know your customers with them before you start doing this. What's in it for me? Be able to clearly communicate why the switch is great for the customer. I see a poll question, excuse me, a question from the audience that I'd love to have the time to talk about, but they're being able to tell and convince somebody why they want to switch and move to a different platform is a value discussion. So when you do this, it's a great time to start looking at your customer base, segment your customers, model them, and test. I could do a whole hour on this slide. And so at the end of it, a lot of the companies that go through this transition from transaction to subscription, they're going to go through this fish model. You know, their revenue is going to decline as they start offering 2 things because of change in their customer base. And so you need to model this to understand how many customers are going to bail on you, or how it's going to change and interrupt your revenue. So that's the business analytics side of it, of being able to do that work. But you want a short fish, unlike fishing. You want to come out and say, yeah, I had the shortest fish of the whole fishing trip. And ideally, your revenue should grow with your customers' revenue, or your efficiency savings that you save your customers. So if you're saving them so much money by automating something or doing something that they couldn't do without your software, quantify that. Be able to relate that to somebody and say, this is why. So next slide. Okay, and so evolving your business model. So for most, it's a question of if, not when, it's going to happen. It's going to affect your whole company, especially pricing and pricing-related sales incentives. Don't screw up your salespeople when you go through this. make sure they're part of it, make sure you bring them through, because that's something that can drop off. But it's a big impact to a lot of other areas. So that's why you want an executive running it, or at least having, you know, a good connection to the CEO. And then when you model all this stuff and get ready, make sure you're transparent about the risk, because, you know, this is one of the good things that Adobe did really well back in the 2012 timeframe when it was all new. They told their board members, hey, we're going to take it. You know, there's some customers that are not going to come with us. They're not going to like this. But they knew that, hey, most of them would, and they knew that they would have an expansion plan after that, and it would allow them to do things that they couldn't if they stayed on their current monetization method. In the bottom one, oh my God, this is the most important thing.
Totally agree on this, by the way, Mark.
Yeah, technology is easy. Yeah. Changing people's minds and how they sell and how they think of something and how they do their thing at work. Oh my God, that's the hardest thing. So there's really good examples of change management, of how you do it well. And really, it's about communication and getting people up front right before things start happening and getting their buy-in, so they all feel part of the solution instead of being affected by these changes that I didn't ask for this, I wasn't a part of this. So yeah, make that very much a part of your plan.
Absolutely. You know, Mark, we had a customer, major billion-dollar customer out in California, who they were going through a digital transformation. They were a traditional hardware on-prem type of customer, again, embracing digital transformation, and they actually set up a team that dealt with a changing culture in their company. Right? They realized that it was that important to help them change their mindsets around selling software versus hardware. It seems like a simple change, but it's really
don't underestimate this.
Yeah,
people don't want to change very quickly. Don't underestimate it.
Yes, I wanted to touch on a question that came in. The question says, in your experience while moving to SaaS and hybrid mode, how do you incentivize your existing base to migrate to SaaS? And this is something that, you know, we are going through as a company as well, where we've had on-prem applications, and now we run our back office certainly as a SaaS product. And this is a question that I asked our virtual roundtable a few weeks ago. It's just, you know, how, you know, what's the value in going to SaaS? And it really comes down to a company being able, or a vendor being able to deliver value to your customers faster. That was the overarching answer, right? So it's, you know, time to market, and it also aligns with changing your development cycle from a waterfall process to an agile process where you're delivering more things in a rapid pace. Okay, so I've got one more chart, and then we can wrap. So final thoughts here from the Thales side. One is really think about the business value. And what that means is what's the financial impact of changing your business model? Don't change for the sake of changing, right? What financial impact will solving your licensing problems actually have with you? So we can help you through this type of question if you folks engage with us. But going beyond that, you know, top-down approaches always work better in these types of cases. Certainly with moving to a subscription business, it's a cultural change. So get executive sponsorship. Find a usage model that works, right? Before you start looking at pricing, I intentionally showed you, you know, 5 or 6 different types of usage models that could work, or that certainly work for some of our customers. So we can help you work through some of those different models and so forth. And then, as Mark mentioned, get your pricing right. One of the things that I asked in the virtual roundtable was how our customers and prospects end up pricing the software, and most of them don't have their own pricing teams. Product management determines the pricing, and nobody that I talked to actually got external help. So there are really good companies out there and services that can help you. We can help kind of get you in the right place there to make sure that your pricing is right. And then finally, got to have a plan. Our most successful customers are the ones that put the investment in place to to articulate what the customer experience is through this change, and it's super, super important. And of course, this is what we do, so we can help you there as well. Okay, and that's what I have, Darren. I will turn the webinar back over to you, but.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, guys, both of you, Dave and Mark, for your great inputs here. We've gone over. We still have a very healthy turnout. So thank you very much for sticking to the end and allowing us to intrude into your next hour. We hope you found it useful. This session will be recorded. It is being recorded. You will get a recording link in less than a week's time. For any questions that we haven't covered, there's a few questions there that we're not going to obviously get to. We will ensure that we follow up with you directly with a response to your question. So once again, on behalf of Dave and of course Mark, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
Have a great day, y'all. Thank you.
Cheers.